Midnight Drearies.
Margie had always loved vintage clothing, so when she and her husband, Tom, bought an old Victorian house in San Francisco, she was ecstatic. It was the perfect place to showcase her collection of antique dresses and accessories. But when Margie went down to the basement to explore, she found something unexpected: an old knitting machine, tucked away in a corner. It was rusty and covered in dust, but Margie could see the potential. She had always wanted to learn how to knit, and this was the perfect opportunity. She brought the machine upstairs, cleaned it up, and set it up in the corner of the living room. Tom thought it was a bit odd, but he was happy to indulge Margie's new hobby. Margie spent every spare moment knitting. She started with scarves and hats, but quickly graduated to sweaters and dresses. She was a natural, and the machine seemed to come alive under her hands. But it wasn't enough. Margie wanted to make something truly special, something that would impress everyone at the Edwardian Ball in San Francisco. She spent hours poring over patterns and fabrics, trying to find the perfect combination. And then, one day, she found it, a delicate lace pattern made from the finest silk. Margie threw herself into the project with a fervor she had never experienced before. She barely slept, barely ate, barely spoke to Tom. All she could think about was the dress, and how perfect it would be. As the weeks went by, Margie's obsession with the dress became all-consuming. She stopped taking care of herself, stopped taking care of the house, and stopped paying attention to anything except the knitting machine. Tom tried to talk to her, to reason with her, but she wouldn't listen. She was convinced that the dress was her ticket to fame and fortune, that it would make her the talk of the town. But as the deadline for the ball drew closer, things started to go wrong. The silk thread kept breaking, no matter how carefully Margie tried to handle it. The machine jammed and malfunctioned, and Margie couldn't figure out how to fix it. And then, one day, she woke up to find that the entire dress had unraveled during the night. It was as if the machine had rebelled against her, as if it had a mind of its own. Margie was devastated. She had put everything into this dress, and now it was ruined. She couldn't bear the thought of showing up at the ball without it. In the days leading up to the ball, Margie started to unravel as well. She became paranoid and delusional, convinced that someone was sabotaging her work. She started hearing whispers and seeing shadows out of the corner of her eye. Tom tried to intervene, but it was too late. Margie had lost touch with reality, lost touch with herself. And then, on the night of the ball, something snapped. Margie arrived wearing a hodgepodge of old dresses, stitched together with scraps of fabric and yarn. Her hair was wild, her eyes were bloodshot, and she was muttering to herself. People stared, whispered, and laughed. Margie didn't seem to notice. She stumbled around the ballroom, knocking over tables and spilling drinks. And then, she saw it, the perfect dress, the one she had spent weeks working on. It was draped over a mannequin in the corner, and it was flawless. Margie stumbled towards it, reaching out with trembling hands. And then, something snapped inside of her. It was as if the flaunting figure itself was laughing at her. She lunged at the menacing, mocking model. Margie's attack on the mannequin was swift and violent. She tore the dress apart, ripping the delicate silk and lace with her bare hands. People screamed and tried to pull her away, but Margie was too strong, too focused. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. Margie collapsed in a heap on the floor, her hands and dress stained with blood. The mannequin lay in pieces around her, a testament to her madness. The police arrived soon after, and Margie was taken away in an ambulance. After being checked at the hospital and finding nothing physically wrong with her, Margie was transferred to a psychiatric care facility. Tom was left to deal with the aftermath, to pick up the pieces of their shattered lives. 9 days later, Margie had another psychotic breakdown, begging for the cosmic goat mother Shub-Niggurath to come and take her away. That night, after calming her down with a high-dose injection of lorazepam, Margie suffered multiple cerebral aneurysms which ballooned and burst, filling her brain pan with blood. The swelling was too great and Margie died. In the weeks and months that followed, Tom tried to make sense of what had happened. He learned that the knitting machine had once belonged to a woman named Rose, who had gone insane and killed herself in the same house years before. Tom sold the machine, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was still lurking in the shadows, waiting to strike. Years went by, and Tom moved on with his life and moved away to Michigan. He remarried, had children, and never spoke of Margie again. But every once in a while, he would catch a glimpse of something out of the corner of his eye. A flash of red silk, a glint of metal, a whisper of laughter. He knew it was all in his head, but he couldn't shake the feeling that Margie was still with him, still haunting him. And then, one day, he received a package in the mail. It was from an antique store in San Francisco, and it contained a small piece of silk, delicately embroidered with the letter M. Tom knew immediately what it meant. Margie had found a way to contact him from beyond the grave, to remind him of the madness that had consumed them both. He threw the silk in the trash and tried to forget, but he knew it was only a matter of time before Margie came back for him. He had learned the hard way that some things were better left buried in the past.